Logan Jones here, and today it is Valentine's Day. One of my favorite holidays just because I'm a lovable kind of guy and I love giving love out. So I'm kind of going to stray away from normal winter baits, and I'm going to show a bait that I love and a lot of people love. And I figured it's kind of appropriate to show a bait you love on the loving holiday, and that is frogs. A lot of people love using frogs, but a lot of people don't know how to use them. That's unfortunate because this is an extremely awesome bait. First things off, to understand how to use a frog, you got to understand a frog. A lot of people, if you throw a frog outside of its element, fish are going to know. Fish are going to look at that frog, especially if you're fishing deep water. This is not a deep water bait. One, it's a top water. So, if you're throwing any kind of top water out in the middle of nowhere, it's kind of, you're not going to get generally nothing, but you're not going to get the results you're looking for sure. You want to go with more mossy, lily pads especially, kind of insinuate there. Moss, most frogs that you use are weedless, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And, shallower, coming from bank to bank. You got a bank here, you're fishing here, throwing into that bank and kind of coming out. Because frogs, they don't generally travel across water unless they absolutely have to. They'll use the perimeter because, frogs are land too. So, the anatomy of a frog is they do hold their breath, they do go underwater, but they generally stay on top. And here's a frog, right? This is a basic frog. We'll get into the types of frogs here. Here they are, and generally if this is the water level, they're hanging below this water level, and their eyes are sticking up like this, okay? So their butt and their legs, which these are insinuating legs, are sticking down into the water. That's how they generally float around. Generally, sometimes when they swim, they're swimming more like this than anything else. So anyway, that's a little bit of background on the frog. They normally don't go down unless they're attacking something, and they're very territorial. All frogs are, male or female. They're extremely territorial animals. They will eat and attack anything. In fact, here's a funny story. Me and my buddy Derek Stewart were fishing a gravel pit, and I decided it was about September, and I generally don't go with a topwater bait in September, but I just decided, we're screwing around at this point. It's coming into noon, and we're kind of losing our bites, and I was like, I want to throw a frog. Well, I threw it, and every time I'd throw it, I felt a bite. I'd see the bite. I'd see something hitting the heck out of this thing. Mac, and I'm telling you, not just kind of hitting. I'm telling you, you could feel it in your line how hard this thing was hitting it. I thought it was a hit. So, I'd give it a few seconds. I'd let it go underwater, or so I thought, because I couldn't see the bait anymore, and then I'd just try to set the hook. Well, every time I tried to set this hook, this bait would just come flying at me. I about hit myself in the mouth, face, body, you name it, a bunch. You can hear it hit the freaking the mud that I was standing in at the time. And I got to looking harder, and the closer I got, I realized that this frog, there was another frog, and I was fishing in its territory with my fake frog, and this frog was literally hopping on top of my frog to drown my frog. They still breathe oxygen, okay? They breathe through their skin. They're amphibians. They have the ability to breathe oxygen through their skin when they're in the water, but their source of oxygen comes through lungs, generally. So anyway, yeah, so you got to watch out for those kinds of bites. The frogs are extremely territorial. Bass hate them. Don't know why. Bass will go out of their way to eat these things. I don't know. I doubt they taste good. I like fried frog legs, so they probably do taste good to a frog. So anyway, some basic frogs here. This is out of my grandpa's tackle bag. This is starting back when they've used frogs for a while, but this is when they started forming some plastic frogs. This is a jig trailer, pretty much. You're going to use a jig, and you may not want to put, I use them weedless. Weedless jig trailer, almost like a football jig, without the skirt. If you can find those anymore, which I'm sure you can, they're pretty popular. I also like to, with these, I don't fish with these a whole lot. I'm not going to lie. This is not my favorite frog. In fact, this is an older frog. These are supposed to hang in the water, and they really don't do that. They don't imitate a frog. They don't. Older baits, when it comes to this, it was newer technology that they're starting to get into, and they didn't really pay attention on how frogs are in the wild compared to their bait. They're not insinuating their bait to their frog. I mean, to their frog to their bait, because you can obviously tell the legs aren't sitting in the water. It's dropping down, And the only time frogs really drop down is when they're trying to get, like, food. and their main food groups are insects, baby frogs, and other male frogs, or adult frogs like that. Every now and then they may try for minnows, but not too often. So anyway, this was earlier. They used these for a long time and they were successful. I'm not saying they're not successful. So moving in, this is a basic frog. This is a modern day, coming into more of a modern day, maybe 90s to early 2000s, these frogs started taking off in the bass world. And, this is a floating frog. Now this one, you see, I call these, butt flails. Butt flails, I'm not too big on the butt flails. This is a scum frog, brand, by the way. These float. They have no weight right here. And to me, that weight is key. Sorry, right here, there's no weight on the bottom of this thing. You still have your hip hooks. And these hip hooks, you see that? That's when that fish hits. Those two hip hooks, those are deadly. You got a double penetration there. They ain't getting off. But your butt flails here are going to sit in the water. And those are going to make what looks like legs. But they don't, to me, don't really get the job done. It still sits. It's light. You don't get as much throwing power off of it. It's just, I don't know. And but the color's good. The color, this is more of a natural color for around these parts. Not extremely vibrant. And you got to think, when these fish are looking, they're going to see the bottom. Because this is in the top. Here's Billy the Bass. I'm whipping him back out. He's in shallow water now. He's not deep. He's not looking for crawdads. Here he is. Boom. Water's up here. He's looking up at this thing. He sees his butt flails here. He's just like, this is what's going to determine it. He's not seeing the top of this frog. Even if you do this, he's not really seeing a whole. I mean, if he's like up towards the top maybe, and he sees that a little bit, he's coming back up. They generally only see the bottom. So this is just a basic one. This is actually I paid about $3 for this a few years back, and never really got into using it. Here's the next one I'm going to show. This is my favorite frog to use, and it's really not. It too is a scum frog, and this right here. You see that? You got your weight here. You got your legs. This is heavily used, by the way. I use these things whenever I can because I love catching fish on frogs. I do. I watch video after video after video of these things. They catch great sized bass. They do. So anyway, this is a scum frog. Look, notice the bottom, it's just basic green frog, some yellow legs here. They love this thing. It's weighted, so it sits like this in the water. It sits more down. Every now and then you'll catch water in here. Now, pay attention to this part because it took me a little bit for the people who don't really fish artificial, when you start fishing a frog, you will sometimes catch water inside of it. Don't worry, just because it's sinking doesn't mean it's broken. Take your bait and squeeze it. Just squeeze all the water out of the butt, or out of this, because you got an opening right here by where your hook is. Squeeze it out of that hook, okay? So like I said, you got your hip hooks here. Hip hooks are great. These are sharp hip hooks. You gotta. Another thing with fishing any top water, just to give you a heads up on this one, is when you see that hit, there's two types of hits when it comes to top water. There's the sucking under where it's gone. Give any hit on top water a few seconds. It's like when you see your bobber go under, if you're a live fisherman, you hook it immediately. This is not one of those times. You want to, because fish, when they sometimes suck it in, they position it. And it's how they position it that you're waiting for. I give them about 2 seconds. My deal is this. I'm fishing it. I have generally a tight line. I don't reel in much. I may give it a half a turn and then whap. I do make, by the way, I make the whapping noise whenever I hook. It just adds emphasis on that. That's how I do it. But anyway, like I said, you wait for them to suck it under. Give them two seconds is kind of long. 3 tops if you don't feel comfortable. And then you hook the crap out of them. Or you got an explosive hook where you just whap. You wait for that fish to go back underwater and give them 1 second. I generally go 1 Mississippi and just whap them. So, 1 Mississippi, hook the crap out of that fish. Now, that brings me into another point. This bait is a flipping bait. You don't need, but it's definitely recommended by me, if you trust my good word, and a lot of other people who, use these baits professionally, and I trust their good word with my life almost, is you really want to fish a heavy rod on some heavy line on a good reel with this bait. Because I tell you right now, when I flipped this bait my first time, I broke a rod. I snapped eyes off of some rods. I've cracked rods. And, you know, if you can't afford to replace these things. When I first started fishing with it, I was 17. I had no job at the time and just did not have the funds to buy the equipment like that. I could afford to lose the frog. I couldn't afford to lose my pole. So, you want to really, if you're going to use these, either fish, you know, I can't stop you, and it didn't stop me. I didn't listen to the professionals because I'm like, I want to use this bait, and it does work. I'm telling you right now, you catch big fish, but they hit so gosh darn hard on this bait that and you hook so gosh darn hard because you're excited that it will mess some stuff up. So you really want a heavier equipment with this thing. I'm telling you, you do. I fish braided line on a heavy action rod with generally a 6.1 gear ratio just to get it back into the boat. Sometimes you want a 7.1 to those people who want to get back in the boat, but 6.1 is perfectly fine. I tell you right now, if you fished within a 5.1, a 6.1 seems crazy fast. Okay, so anyway, there's your setup you're going to use for this flipping bait. Now this is a basic one. This is you used to be able to get this type. Now Scumfrog did come out with a new type, and they're really pushing that. I haven't really seen too many of these around. Not even at Bass Pro. You can find them still, I'm sure. I just haven't seen them. They got, instead of having these danglies here, you know, your what looks like skirts, they have actual paddles on them. And there's also soft plastic baits that have paddles on them. That's what I call them. They just kick. They kick more. They look more like real legs. These are kind of flailing around down in there. Those kick more. One thing I don't like about the paddles, though, is that fish will bite those off. Fish, you know, sometimes they'll come back. A lot of people say they're stupid. They're not stupid, trust me. If this is in the water like this, okay, and this is me ranting on about paddle legs, so you may not get anything from this part, but they won't come up and do this. They'll sometimes come up and they'll grab a leg and rip it off. And when they rip that off, that frog ain't going anywhere, trust me. That frog is suspended right there. It may try to hobble back into the bank, but generally when they rip it off, they'll turn back around while it's trying to hobble, and it's not moving nowhere near as fast. They'll give it a few seconds, they'll eat that leg, and then they'll come back and eat the rest. So with these right here, if they get a good bite on it, it's going to take the whole thing, no matter what you're using. But if they get a crappy bite on it, you may only lose a few fibers of that skirt material off on that. Now, the next one, I'm going to a non-natural frog here. And this is I want to say this is either a Booyah frog or a KVD frog. Now, I haven't, you know, I threw away the pack so long ago, but nonetheless, this is not a natural-looking frog, okay? I mean, that's golden, the bottom right here. Like I said, they'll be seeing this bottom. But this also catches a lot of fish around here. I'm telling you right now, natural or not, this bottom right here, this is more of a natural bottom. You see that? You see that orange? It always comes back. That's actually more of a pink. That always comes back to that color right there. They really key on that, especially in clear waters. You'll hear me say this a lot. They really do key on specific colors sometimes, and when they key on that, when they decide they want that, this color can make the difference. When your buddy and you fishing the same bait with that one stripe could make the difference. Like, they got black dots all over. I've never seen a frog like this. They got red eyes. Now, with this one, you notice that the eyes, this definitely looks more real. You see these eyes are sticking out the side of the head. This is what a real frog actually, it's more designed like a real frog, but it doesn't look anything like a native frog around here. And you can still catch away. These on this right here, these hip hooks are ridiculous. These are heavy duty. I'm telling you right now. This is that kind of frog that, you know, you can hook as hard as you want. You can do this with these too, but these hooks are designed, if you can just rip these things, you can rip it out of stuff. Another thing is, the best thing about this is it's weedless. Don't be afraid to throw it on top of moss, lily pads, hydrilla, anything that you want to get through. This is where has the advantage over a popper. And the unfortunate thing is, though, that you can only really use these specifically in certain areas. You can't just go on and use these any time of the year. The one big thing about this is I've had a lot more hits on when it's Class cloudy and about morning time. When it's cloudy outside and it's morning time, they seem to really kill these things. Now, that's not saying that it won't work any other time, but generally, if it's morning, cloudy, and the water temperature is in the 70s, you're going to really get them, because that's when frogs, they're also cold-blooded, are going to start moving around a lot. Another thing is rain. Rain, when it starts to rain, obviously it's cloudy outside, and I can get away with using a frog. I prefer to use it like a popper, but if I'm fishing weeds and stuff that just a treble hook will get caught up in, a frog will take the place of that popper. Now, speaking of poppers, now let me get into this right now. I'm really pumped for this one. I haven't fished with it yet, so I'm not going to recommend it to you guys until I fish with it, but I'm telling you right now, I have a great feeling about this bait. This is by Spro, and for you, those of you who don't know Spro, they make a lot of off-the-wall baits, and they also make a lot of really good baits. And this is one of their baits. This is a combination here. This is a popper mixed in with a frog bait. Here's the popper right here. You see that? That is cool. This best of both worlds to me. If I'm fishing topwater and I don't want to retie a freaking hook back on, or my popper back on, this right here is going to be, to me, I can't wait to use it to see how I do use it. But this is going to save me time eventually, somewhere down the line. And it's all about saving time in tournaments. And it's all about saving time when you don't want to freaking rehook. That's pretty much the baseline. You don't want to rehook something, this is awesome. One cool thing about this bait is the bottom is yellow. I love that yellow bottom with these lines here. They will key in on that. It's a smaller one. I got this one at Field & Stream. You can get them at Bass Pro. Walmart doesn't have them yet. And I'm sure soon enough they will, because all these baits I got at Walmart except for this one. Guys, I'm pumped to use this bait. It just makes me smile when I look at it. The fact that I found that and bought it. Well, that pretty much cuts it right there. I'm trying to think. I'm feeling like I'm forgetting something here. Maybe not. Anyway, the key things about these is you don't have to have a very vibrant one, but sometimes it helps, just like any other bait. And this is my favorite right here. Just the normal green. This is the one. This is actually the one where it was getting drowned by the popper frog. Oh yeah, another thing. This is what I was thinking of. Sorry about that. I wasted like 30 seconds here. Okay, here's what I'm thinking of here. One huge thing when you're popping this back in, here's a technique, is you don't want to move too fast. You want to look like you're trying to be cautious moving through the water. That's how frogs move through the water. They're not going to come in here and they're not going to start like popping through here like this. They're going to pop, 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 pop. They're going to hop around a lot. They're going to stop, fill around their water, stop, hop, hop, fill around their water. They're not going to just pop, 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 and stop. Pop, 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 pop. Bass love sporadic motions. Get them used to a pattern and just throw them off, and they will go for that bait because they don't know if they're going to be able to get that. So you're popping like pop, pop, pop one, pop, pop, pop two, and then poof, one long pull. That's going to get you, especially with the normal popper. With this frog, though, be cautious. You got to act like pretend, this is how I look at it, pretend you're the frog. You're the frog, you're in the water. How would you move through the water? You're going to try to sneak around. That's how they're going to do it. So, that's pretty much the biggest technique there I can give to you. A huge thing is, guys, with these, you got to get out there and fish with them. That's the difference between knowing how to fish with a bait and not knowing how to fish is, that's how you're going to learn the most. You can't just listen to this fella right here with a redneck in the middle of Ohio blab on about fishing. You got to fish. Try these techniques. If you like them, write them down. That's what I do. Write them down in that little notebook that I showed my equipment special and take them on out there to your pond and really just key on some certain things. Find what you're comfortable with. That's the biggest thing about fishing and being good at it. Find what you're comfortable with and use it. I'm comfortable with this frog, but it took me about a year. I fished with a frog all summer as much as I could to figure out what, when and what time of the day it works. It also works, by the way, in afternoon, coming into dark because the frogs are headed back. You can hear them at nighttime. The bullfrogs are going nuts. That's a big thing is we have a ton of resources now. You have Bassmaster.com, Fishing with the Pros. You got the Scott Martin Challenge. Watch him. He also shows some good stuff. You have FLW mags. You have a library of stuff on the internet, and if you're watching my videos and you're on my Facebook, I'm assuming you have the internet. If not, go somewhere where you have. Go to a friend's house. And if you're really curious, I guarantee you can find it. Nothing's held back on the internet. There's always somebody wanting to show you something on the internet. So, if I don't show it, I guarantee you somebody out in this, on God's green earth, will show this video. I'll show you what you want to know. So, I love these frogs. Happy Valentine's Day to you guys, by the way. This is actually one of the funnest baits I've ever fished with. They are explosive when they hit this bait. They are ridiculous when they hit this bait, and you get good quality fish. Sometimes you also get the smaller ones hitting on the tails, and that's the cool thing about this bait is some smaller ones, they can't fit this bait in their mouth sometimes, especially this big one. You get a small little baby bass, they won't be able to fit that bait in their mouth. So anyway, guys, so there's always more to it. But this is just some basics, and whenever I get into this fishing season, I'm going to show you actually how to use these bad boys. So, until next time, I tell you what, until next time I show these, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down into the comment area. Another thing is, I'm going to keep saying this, at the end of each video, I will say this: me and Derek Stewart are making a show. I will tell you the YouTube channel, but we're making a show where we basically fish with a bait that we may or may not have fished with already, and we're going to have a tournament after the end of 4 days of practicing. We will film and show you guys what's going on. Another thing is that I have a Facebook page called Fisherman's Chat. If you're into fishing tips and you don't have time to watch the 20-minute video, this is a good place to get quick tips. This is a good place to kind of brush up on a couple things, and it's another place where you can also post your pictures on what you caught, or a big fish you've caught, and things you want to see if people like. You can like the page, you can share the page, that'd be great. Share these videos, guys. I want everyone around to learn, and if I can teach them, that makes me really happy. I'm not in this to make money. I'm not in this to get likes. I'm not that kind of person. I just want everyone to learn. That gets me so pumped just to think that if I'm able to teach them, it just makes me really happy. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for viewing these videos, and I hope you guys have a great day.